The tense moment a guard shielded Prince William from a protester, tied to the inner circle. The event was meant to show support for a community project, and many people were excited to see him in person. The location was an open public space, chosen to allow interaction with ordinary citizens. Barricades had been placed neatly, and security checks were completed early. From the outside, everything looked calm, organized, and friendly. Prince William arrived in a modest convoy. As he stepped out of the vehicle, he wore a composed expression, the kind shaped by years of public duty. He greeted local officials first, shaking hands and exchanging polite words. Cameras clicked constantly, capturing every movement. The crowd behind the barriers waved and called his name. Many had waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of him. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, and some people held small flags or signs of welcome. The security team was already in position. Each guard had a specific role and location. They were trained to blend into the background while staying alert. One guard, in particular, stood close to Prince William's path. He had been part of royal protection for many years and understood how quickly a peaceful moment could change. His eyes moved constantly, scanning faces, hands, and movements. He listened not only to sounds but also to silence, knowing that both could signal trouble. Prince William began walking along the barrier, stopping occasionally to greet people. He spoke to an elderly woman who thanked him for visiting. He bent slightly to speak to a young boy who looked nervous but excited. These moments were common for him, but he treated each one with care. The crowd responded warmly and the mood felt positive. From a distance, the scene looked exactly as planned. Among the people standing near the barrier was a man who did not look out of place at first. He was dressed simply and stood quietly, unlike others who waved or smiled. His face remained serious. To most people, he was just another spectator. But to trained eyes, something about him felt different. He did not look at Prince William with admiration or curiosity. Instead, his gaze was fixed, intense, as if he were waiting for a precise moment. The guard noticed him early. It was not because the man was doing anything wrong, but because he seemed too still. While others shifted their weight, raised phones, or spoke to one another, this man barely moved. The guard did not react openly. He simply made a mental note and continued watching. Experience had taught him that early awareness mattered more than late reaction. Prince William moved further down the line. His staff followed at a respectful distance, keeping the pace slow enough for interaction but steady enough to stay on schedule. The guard adjusted his position slightly, always keeping himself between the prince and the crowd. His posture remained relaxed, but his muscles were ready. He had practiced these movements countless times. As the minutes passed, the atmosphere remained calm. There were no loud voices, no sudden movements. Even the man who had caught the guard's attention stayed quiet. Yet the guard sensed a growing tension he could not fully explain. It was the kind of feeling that came from years of experience, not from visible signs. He stayed focused, reminding himself not to assume but to observe. Prince William paused again, listening to a local organizer explain the importance of the project. He nodded thoughtfully and offered encouraging words. The cameras moved closer, and reporters leaned in to catch his remarks. The crowd fell quieter, listening. It was during this brief stillness that the guard noticed the man shift his position. The movement was small but deliberate. The man stepped closer to the barrier, gripping it tightly. His jaw tightened and his eyes followed Prince William closely. The guard adjusted his stance, moving half a step forward. He did not touch his earpiece or signal alarm. At this point, caution was enough. What made the situation more complex was something the guard recognized moments later. The man's face seemed familiar, not from public appearances, but from internal briefings long ago. He had been associated with royal operations in the past, someone who once moved in trusted spaces. This realization raised the stakes. A person with inside knowledge could behave differently from an ordinary protester. Prince William, still unaware, continued speaking calmly. His voice was steady and his body language open. He trusted his team completely, focusing on his role rather than scanning the crowd. That trust was built on years of protection that allowed him to engage freely with the public. The guard's mind worked quickly. He recalled fragments of old information, trying to confirm his memory without losing focus on the present moment. The man had not yet spoken or raised anything. There was no clear reason to intervene, but the guard understood that waiting too long could be dangerous. He positioned himself slightly closer to Prince William, closing the distance subtly. The crowd began to stir again as Prince William prepared to move on. Applause broke out, and some people leaned forward, hoping for one last moment of attention. The noise increased, creating a cover where sudden actions could be hidden. The guard's attention sharpened even more. He watched the man's hands carefully. For a brief moment, the man looked down, as if gathering his thoughts. Then he looked up again, his expression set with purpose. The guard felt a familiar tightening in his chest, the calm before something uncertain. Still, no rules had been broken. The event continued, balanced on an invisible edge. Prince William took a step forward, guided by staff. The guard matched his movement instantly. He was ready to act if needed, trained to place himself in harm's way without hesitation. Years of drills, long hours, and quiet discipline led to this kind of readiness. To the crowd, it was still just a normal public visit. Smiles, cameras, and polite conversation filled the space. But within the security team, awareness had shifted. They did not yet know what would happen, only that something felt different from routine. As Prince William moved toward the next section of the crowd, the guard kept his eyes on the familiar stranger. The distance between them narrowed slightly. The guard prepared himself mentally, knowing that if a moment came, it would come fast. The routine appearance was no longer just routine. Beneath the calm surface, tension quietly built, unseen by most, waiting for a single moment to change everything. The calm feeling that had surrounded the event slowly began to change. Most people in the crowd did not notice it, but within the security team, awareness grew sharper with every passing second. The guard who had been watching the quiet man could feel the tension settling in his shoulders. He stayed controlled, reminding himself that careful observation mattered more than quick judgment. Prince William continued moving along the barrier. He smiled, nodded, and listened as people spoke to him. His manner remained respectful and relaxed. To the public, he looked completely at ease. That calm presence helped keep the crowd steady, even as curiosity and excitement grew. Phones were raised higher, and people leaned forward, hoping to be noticed. The man near the barrier took another small step forward. This time, his movement was more confident. He lifted his head and looked directly at Prince William. His lips pressed together, and his breathing seemed heavier. The guard noticed how the man's body leaned forward, as if he were preparing to speak. The guard subtly shifted his position again, making sure he stood in the most protective angle possible. Then it happened. A loud voice broke through the noise of the crowd. The man spoke suddenly, his words sharp and emotional. Conversations around him stopped. Heads turned in his direction. The sound of his voice carried further than expected, cutting through the polite atmosphere like a sudden gust of wind. Prince William paused. He did not react with shock or fear, but he did turn slightly toward the voice, trying to understand what was being said. His expression remained calm, though his eyes showed focus. He had faced public criticism before, and he understood that not every voice would be friendly. The words themselves were not dangerous, but the tone was intense. The man spoke with familiarity, mentioning details that suggested he knew how royal events worked. That alone caused concern. The guard felt his instincts tighten. This was no random shout. This was personal. People nearby stepped back instinctively. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious. Cameras shifted toward the man, capturing the unexpected moment. A few members of the crowd murmured, unsure of how to react. The cheerful mood faded quickly, replaced by uncertainty. The guard glanced briefly at his team without turning his head fully. No signals were given yet. The man had not crossed any clear boundary, and the rules required restraint unless necessary. Still, the guard kept his body positioned between the man and Prince William, closing the space just enough to act if needed. The man continued speaking. His voice shook slightly, not with fear, but with emotion. He spoke as someone who felt ignored, someone who believed his concerns had not been heard. His words hinted at past involvement, suggesting that he once stood closer to royal operations than anyone in the crowd realized. Prince William listened for a moment. He did not interrupt or respond. He stood still, his posture open but alert. Years of training and experience guided him as much as it guided his security team. He understood that reacting too quickly could make the situation worse. The guard noticed the man's hands moving as he spoke. They were empty, but the movements were restless. Fingers opened and closed, gripping the barrier tightly. The guard's focus narrowed. He placed one foot slightly forward, ready to move if the man leaned any closer. Around them, the crowd shifted again. Some people tried to see better. Others stepped back, sensing that something was wrong. Event staff began guiding people a little further away, creating more space without drawing attention. Everything was done carefully, quietly, and without panic. The man's voice grew louder. His words repeated, circling the same point. Emotion poured out of him and his frustration became clear. He was not shouting to cause chaos. He was shouting because he believed this was his only chance to be heard. The guard understood this kind of moment. Not every threat came with anger or force. Sometimes, danger grew from emotional pressure and broken trust. That was what made this situation so delicate. The man knew the system. He knew where to stand. He knew when to speak. Prince William took a slow breath. He raised one hand slightly, not as a signal but as a calm gesture. It was a natural response, meant to ease the tension. The crowd quieted just a little. The man paused, surprised by the attention. That pause mattered. The guard used it to step closer. He did not touch the man or block him openly. He simply made his presence unmistakable. His body language sent a clear message. The boundary was firm. The guard's face remained neutral, professional, and calm. The man looked at the guard briefly. For a second, recognition flashed across his face. He seemed to realize that his connection to the inner circle was known. That realization changed his expression. The anger softened into something closer to regret or disappointment. Security staff approached quietly from the sides. They did not rush. They did not grab. They spoke to the man in low voices, asking him to step back and calm down. The goal was control, not confrontation. The crowd watched in silence. No one shouted. No one pushed. The situation remained balanced, held together by calm actions and clear authority. Prince William was gently guided a step back by a staff member, done so smoothly that most people barely noticed. The man hesitated. For a moment it was unclear what he would do next. The guard held his position, ready to shield Prince William if needed. His training reminded him to stay focused, not on fear but on responsibility. Finally, the man lowered his voice. He stepped back from the barrier, guided by security. His protest ended not with drama but with quiet removal. The cameras continued recording, but the most intense moment had passed. As the man was escorted away, the guard kept watching until he was fully out of sight. Only then did he allow himself a slow breath. His posture relaxed slightly, though his awareness remained high. Prince William resumed the event shortly after. He thanked the crowd for their patience and continued with the schedule. His voice was steady, his expression composed. To the public, it looked like professionalism. To the security team, it was a sign of trust and resilience. Behind the scenes, communication buzzed quietly through earpieces. Information was shared, details confirmed. The man's background and connections were discussed carefully. Everyone understood that the situation could have unfolded very differently. The guard stayed close to Prince William for the rest of the event. He remained alert, watching every movement, every face. Though the immediate tension had passed, the memory of that moment stayed fresh in his mind. What had begun as a routine appearance had revealed something deeper. The protest was not just a disruption. It was a reminder that familiarity could be unpredictable, and that calm, careful action mattered more than force. As the event continued, the crowd slowly returned to normal. Smiles reappeared and conversations resumed. But for those who had been closest to the moment, the memory lingered. The line between safety and danger had been thin, and it was held together by awareness, discipline, and trust. The situation seemed under control, but the guard knew from experience that the most risky moments often came right after things appeared calm. His eyes stayed alert, moving from the crowd back to Prince William and then outward again. The noise level had lowered, yet there was a strange, quiet tension hanging in the air. It was the kind of silence that made trained professionals stay sharp. Prince William continued walking, guided gently by staff. He spoke to another local representative, listening carefully and nodding in agreement. To anyone watching, it looked like the event had returned to normal. But inside the security circle, no one relaxed. Every guard knew that emotions did not disappear instantly. Sometimes they returned stronger. The guard who had first noticed the protester felt a shift in his instincts again. Something was not fully settled. He scanned the faces near the barrier, searching for signs of movement or reaction linked to the earlier incident. People were whispering. Some pointed quietly in the direction where the man had been taken away. Others checked their phones, possibly sharing what they had just seen. Then, from the edge of the crowd, another movement caught the guard's attention. It was the same man. He had not been taken far enough away. The guard's heart rate increased slightly, but his face remained calm. The man had broken free from the escort momentarily, not by force, but by slipping through a gap as people shifted. His face now showed urgency rather than anger. He was moving faster, pushing through the crowd with determination. This time, the guard did not wait. Prince William was just a few steps ahead, focused on the event. He had not yet noticed the renewed movement. The guard closed the distance between himself and the prince in 2 quick steps, placing his body directly in front of him. It was a decision made without hesitation. The guard raised his arm across Prince William's chest in a firm but controlled motion, signaling him to stop. At the same time, the guard turned his body sideways, forming a solid barrier. His stance was wide, balanced, and protective. Years of training guided every movement. Prince William reacted instantly, trusting the signal without question. He stepped back smoothly, guided by another guard who appeared at his side. There was no panic in his expression, only understanding. He had learned long ago that when security moved like this, it was best to follow without delay. The man's voice rose again, louder and closer this time. His words blurred together, filled with urgency. He was not shouting threats, but the speed and intensity of his movement created danger. People around him stepped aside quickly, surprised by his sudden push forward. The guard held his position, his eyes locked on the man, his focus narrowing to a single point. He did not speak. His presence alone sent a clear message. This line would not be crossed. Other guards moved in immediately. They surrounded the man from both sides, guiding him firmly but carefully away from the area. Their movements were fast but controlled, practiced to avoid causing fear or chaos. The crowd reacted with gasps, but no one screamed. The situation remained contained. For a brief moment, everything felt frozen. Cameras were raised. Some people held their breath. The air felt heavy with attention. The guard felt Prince William safely behind him now. That knowledge allowed him to focus fully on the threat in front of him. His job was not only to block but to absorb attention to become the visible shield. The man struggled verbally but did not resist physically. His words spilled out, emotional and confused. He sounded more desperate than aggressive. That did not change the guard's response. Emotion could still lead to unpredictable actions. Within seconds, the man was fully removed from the immediate area. Security escorted him further away this time, ensuring distance and control. Event staff quickly redirected the crowd's attention, asking people to move back and stay calm. The guard stayed where he was until he received a quiet confirmation through his earpiece. Only then did he lower his arms slightly. His breathing remained steady, though his muscles still carried tension. Prince William was moved a few steps back into a more secure space. He placed a hand lightly on the guard's shoulder, a brief and silent acknowledgement. No words were needed. The moment passed quickly, but it carried weight. The event paused for a short time. Officials spoke quietly among themselves, deciding how to proceed. The crowd waited, unsure whether the appearance would continue. Some looked worried, others impressed by how smoothly everything had been handled. Prince William stepped forward again after a moment. His expression was composed but more serious now. He addressed the people nearby, thanking them for their patience and understanding. His voice was calm and steady, helping ease the remaining tension. The guard returned to his position slightly behind and to the side of Prince William. His awareness stayed high. He replayed the moment in his mind, not with fear but with precision. He knew why he had acted when he did. There was no doubt. Behind the scenes, communication moved quickly. Security teams shared updates, confirming that the man had been fully contained and that no further risk was present. They discussed the man's background, his past connections, and how he had managed to get so close again. The guard listened quietly through his earpiece while continuing his role. He felt a mix of responsibility and relief. Responsibility, because his actions had mattered. Relief, because the situation had ended without harm. As the event resumed, the crowd slowly relaxed. Some people clapped when Prince William continued his walk, showing support and appreciation. Others simply watched with new awareness, realizing how fragile public moments could be. Prince William continued engaging with the community, though the pace was slightly quicker now. He remained polite and attentive, refusing to let the disruption define the day. His calm behavior set the tone for everyone around him. The guard matched every step, his focus unbroken. He understood that protection was not about force but timing. A single second could change everything. Acting too early could cause panic. Acting too late could cause harm. This time the timing had been right. As the appearance moved toward its conclusion, the guard felt the tension slowly ease from his shoulders. The most dangerous moment had passed. Still, the memory stayed sharp. He knew he would carry it with him long after the crowd dispersed. To most people, the incident would be remembered as a brief interruption. To the guard, it was a reminder of why he stood where he did, why he trained endlessly, and why silence and awareness mattered more than recognition. He had done his duty without hesitation. And in that split second, he had become the shield that allowed everything else to continue. After the second removal of the man, the event did not end immediately, but nothing felt the same again. The crowd remained present, yet a quiet awareness had settled over everyone. People stood a little straighter, spoke a little softer, and watched the security team with new respect. What had happened was no longer just a strange moment. It had become something people would remember. Prince William continued the visit, but the schedule was adjusted. Some planned stops were shortened, others skipped. The decision was made calmly and professionally without public announcement. Staff members communicated in low voices, moving smoothly as if this had always been the plan. To the public, it looked like a natural change. Behind the scenes, it was careful risk management. The guard stayed closer than before. His position never drifted. He watched every face, every step, every hand that rose from the crowd. Even smiles were studied now, not with suspicion but with awareness. The lesson had already been reinforced. Familiarity did not always mean safety. Prince William noticed the change as well. He could feel the shift in energy, even though no one said it out loud. Still, he refused to let fear guide his actions. He spoke kindly, listened carefully, and showed respect to those he met. His calm presence helped steady the situation, reminding everyone why he was there in the first place. As the event moved toward its conclusion, the crowd slowly began to thin. Some people left early, satisfied with what they had seen. Others stayed, hoping to catch one final glimpse. The atmosphere gradually softened, though the security team remained fully alert until the very end. Once Prince William was guided back to the vehicle, the guards did not relax immediately. Doors were closed, positions were checked, and confirmation signals were exchanged. Only when the convoy began moving did the guard finally allow himself a deeper breath. His role for the moment was complete, but his mind was still racing. Inside the vehicle, Prince William sat quietly, looking out the window as the location faded behind them. He did not speak right away. He understood that moments like these required reflection. The guard stood nearby, his posture still straight, his focus still forward. After a few minutes, Prince William turned slightly and spoke in a calm voice. He thanked the guard and the team for their professionalism. His words were simple but sincere. He did not praise dramatically or ask questions. He acknowledged what mattered, trust and action. The guard nodded respectfully. He did not feel pride in the usual sense. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of duty fulfilled. This was not why he sought recognition. He had acted because it was his responsibility. Still, hearing those words meant something. They confirmed that his judgment had been right. Back at the secure location, the team gathered briefly. No one raised their voice. No one exaggerated the events. They discussed facts, timing, and decisions. What had gone well? What could be improved? This was standard practice, but the mood was thoughtful. Everyone understood how close the situation had come to becoming something much worse. The background of the man was reviewed carefully. His past connection to the inner circle explained how he knew where to stand, when to speak, and how to move. It also explained why he had believed his voice deserved immediate attention. The review was not about blame. It was about understanding patterns and preventing future risks. The guard listened as details were shared. Some of the information confirmed what he had sensed earlier. Other details were new. Together, they painted a clearer picture of how emotional pressure and personal history could combine into unpredictable behavior. Later that day, news of the incident began to appear in media reports. Most described it briefly, focusing on how quickly and calmly security responded. Footage showed the guard stepping forward, his arm raised protectively, his body forming a barrier. Viewers praised the professionalism, though few understood the full weight of that moment. The guard did not watch the footage himself. He had no interest in seeing it replayed. For him, the memory was already clear enough. He remembered the feeling of the ground beneath his feet, the sound of the man's voice, and the quiet trust in Prince William's response. That evening, as he prepared to rest, the guard found it difficult to fully relax. His body was tired, but his mind stayed alert. This was common after intense moments. He replayed his decisions, not with regret but with reflection. Each movement had been intentional. Each second had mattered. He thought about how close the man had come, not physically, but emotionally. A person once trusted had reached a breaking point. It reminded the guard that protection was not only about blocking danger, but understanding people. Knowing when tension was rising. Knowing when calm could prevent chaos. Prince William also reflected privately. Public life had taught him many lessons, but moments like these reinforced the importance of unseen work. He thought about the guard's quick decision, the silent coordination, and the trust that allowed him to step back without question. He understood that his ability to serve depended on those willing to stand in front of him. The next day, operations returned to normal. Schedules continued, appearances moved forward, but for those involved, something had shifted. Awareness was sharper, respect was deeper. The event had become a reminder rather than a disruption. The guard returned to duty with the same discipline as always. He did not change his behavior or seek attention. Yet inside, he carried a renewed understanding of his role. Protection was not dramatic. It was quiet, constant, and often unnoticed until it was needed most. Colleagues spoke to him briefly, offering small nods of acknowledgement. No speeches were made. No medals were handed out. That was not how this world worked. Recognition came in trust, in continued responsibility, and in being relied upon again. As time passed, the incident slowly faded from public discussion. New stories took its place. But within the security team, it became part of training discussions, a real example of awareness and timing. The guard's action was referenced not by name, but by choice, a reminder of what it meant to act at the right moment. For the guard, life continued much as before. Early mornings, long hours, careful observation. Yet the memory stayed with him not as a burden but as a confirmation. He had been ready, he had acted, and because of that, everyone else had been able to move forward safely. The moment had passed, but its impact remained, quiet and lasting, shaping how future moments would be handled. In the days that followed, life returned to its usual rhythm on the surface. Public schedules continued, meetings were held, and official duties moved forward as planned. To most people, the incident slowly became just another short news story, replaced by newer headlines. But for those who had been closest to that moment, its meaning stayed alive in quiet ways. The guard returned to work with the same discipline he always carried. He arrived early, reviewed briefings, and took his position without drawing attention to himself. Nothing about his appearance or behavior suggested that he had recently stood between danger and duty. That was how he preferred it. For him, protection was not about being noticed. It was about being prepared. Still, small changes followed. Security procedures were reviewed carefully, not because mistakes had been made, but because learning never stopped. Routes were adjusted slightly. Crowd placement was reconsidered. Communication methods were refined. Each change was thoughtful, aimed at preventing similar situations in the future. The guard took part in these reviews quietly. When asked to explain his actions, he spoke simply and clearly. He did not dramatize the moment or speak of courage. He explained what he saw, what he felt, and why he moved when he did. His words were calm, focused on awareness rather than emotion. Others listened closely. Younger guards especially paid attention. For them, this was not a story from a training manual. It was a real example, one that showed how quickly routine could turn serious, and how important timing truly was. The guard's experience became a lesson shared without names or praise, only purpose. Prince William also continued his work, traveling to different locations and meeting people from all walks of life. His approach did not change. He remained open, respectful, and steady. He refused to let one moment of tension close him off from the public. At the same time, his appreciation for the people who protected him grew deeper. During one quieter moment away from cameras, Prince William spoke briefly with the guard again. There was no formal setting, no audience. He simply expressed gratitude for the guard's judgment and calm. The conversation was short, but meaningful. It reminded both of them that trust worked both ways. For Prince William, the incident reinforced something he already knew but rarely spoke about. Leadership was not only about standing in front. It was also about knowing when to step back and allow others to do their work. The shield that day had not been visible to most, but it had been strong. The man who caused the disruption faded from public attention completely. He was handled through proper channels, away from crowds and cameras. His actions were reviewed with care, not with anger. Those responsible understood that emotional strain and personal history could affect judgment. The goal was prevention, not punishment. As weeks passed, the memory of the event softened, but it did not disappear. It became part of the guard's inner awareness, a quiet reminder carried into every new assignment. He did not feel fear when he remembered it. He felt clarity. On later public appearances, crowds were just as warm and welcoming as before. Smiles returned easily. Children waved. People called out greetings. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside the security circle, however, awareness remained sharper. Every movement was observed with calm attention. The guard noticed that his own confidence had deepened, not in a loud way, but in a steady one. He trusted his instincts more fully now, knowing they had guided him well when it mattered most. That trust made him calmer, not more tense. At home, life remained simple. He did not speak much about his work. When asked about long days, he answered briefly. His family understood that some things were better left unspoken. Still, they noticed his quiet focus and respected it. Occasionally, he would think back to the exact second when he stepped forward. The feeling was still clear in his mind. Not excitement, not fear, just certainty. That certainty was what he valued most. It told him he was exactly where he was meant to be. For the public, the story slowly became one of professionalism. People spoke about how calmly the situation had been handled, how quickly order was restored. Some praised the security team, others barely remembered the details. That was fine. Safety did not need applause. Within the institution, the incident became a quiet reference point, not something spoken about often, but something understood. It reminded everyone that the line between calm and danger could be thin, and that the people who stood on that line mattered. Prince William continued to show the same confidence in his team. He did not hesitate during public engagements. He trusted the system and the people within it. That trust strengthened the bond between him and those who protected him, creating an environment where calm decisions could be made quickly. As time moved on, new challenges came, as they always did. Each one was different. Each one required attention and judgment. The guard faced them with the same steady approach he always had, shaped now by experience rather than routine. The incident did not define his career, but it confirmed it. It showed him that his training, patience, and awareness were not theoretical. They worked in real moments, under real pressure. That knowledge stayed with him quietly, giving purpose to long hours and silent vigilance. In the end, what mattered most was not what almost happened, but what did not. There was no chaos, no panic, no harm. A potential risk was recognized and managed with calm action. Life continued, uninterrupted for most. That was the true success of the moment. The guard remained where he always was, just close enough to act, just far enough to stay unseen. Prince William continued his role with confidence and trust. The public continued to gather, hopeful and curious. And between them all stood something rarely noticed but always present. Quiet readiness, built on discipline, trust, and the understanding that sometimes the most important actions are the ones that happen in silence. The moment passed, but its lesson endured, steady and clear, carried forward into every future step.